Before you go any further, stop for a second. Put your hand over your heart. Take one slow breath in and let it out gently. Settle yourself. This is not just another piece of content passing in front of your eyes. It carries weight. It carries timing. It may even feel as if these words were placed here for you on purpose. And maybe that is not an accident. Sometimes a truth reaches us only when something inside us is finally ready to hear it. So listen closely. There is someone somewhere who has not been thinking of you in a casual way, not once in a while, not as a faded memory, but in a deep and repeated way. Quietly, constantly. They have been carrying thoughts of you in their chest without saying a word. And now something is shifting. Life, fate, timing, whatever name you give it, seems to be moving pieces into place. This person is finding a path back toward you, and what they may bring with them could hit you harder than you expect. Take one more breath before you continue. This did not cross your path for no reason. It showed up because some part of you was ready. Somewhere in your story there is a person who went quiet. Maybe they stepped back. Maybe they acted like they were done, like you were just a page they had turned and left behind. But inside them, something has changed. Quietly. Deeply. And now they are coming back, not for small talk, not to ask how you have been, but because there is a truth in them that has become too heavy to carry alone. There are some connections that do not follow normal rules. Time does not erase them. Distance does not weaken them the way people expect. Silence does not kill them. And chances are, you have already felt signs of that yourself. Maybe you suddenly thought of this person for no clear reason. Maybe a song came on and their memory rose up before you could stop it. Maybe you woke from a dream with their face still in your mind. Maybe emotion touched you out of nowhere and you could not explain why. These things do not always feel random when two people are still tied together at a deeper level. Those unseen threads have a strange way of making themselves known, even after long silence. This person tried to cut those threads. They stayed busy. They filled their time. They told themselves they were over it. They tried to believe they had moved on. And during the noise of the day, maybe they almost believed it. But late at night, when the world became still and there was nothing left to distract them, you were still there. Your memory kept rising. Your voice returned to them. Moments they thought were finished kept opening again in the dark. And that kind of silent ache does something to a person. It presses on them. It follows them. It asks for an answer. Stay with this because the next part matters more than you think. On the outside, they may look calm, put together, even untouched. But underneath that surface, they have been replaying memories, hearing your laughter, feeling the space you left, and asking themselves the question they can no longer avoid. Why is it still you? That question scares them more than they would ever admit, because the answer forces them to face something real. It means you mattered more than they allowed themselves to say. It means what was between you was not small. It means they did not simply lose a connection because life went another way. They lost it because they did not show up how they should have. They did not give what they could have given. They did not value what was right in front of them while they still had the chance. And that kind of truth sits heavy on the heart. You may wonder why, if they feel all this, they stayed silent for so long. The answer is simple, even if it is painful. Fear. Fear of how you would respond. Fear that you had already healed. Fear that you were happier without them. Fear of rejection. Fear of being seen in a weak and honest moment. Fear of admitting that they were wrong. Silence felt safer. But silence has its own cost. Every day they said nothing. The weight grew. Every day they held it in, the truth became louder. And after a while, silence no longer felt like protection. It started to feel like a prison they had built around themselves. Something broke through that prison. Maybe it was small. Maybe they saw a place that reminded them of you. Maybe they heard your name. Maybe loneliness touched them in a new way one evening. Maybe they realized life keeps moving and what was left unsaid was still sitting inside them. Whatever it was, it broke through their walls. And in that moment, they made a choice. Not from impulse, not from drama, from somewhere honest. They decided they had to speak. When they do speak, it will not be light. It will not be ordinary. They are not returning just to catch up or clear awkward air. They are returning to say the things they buried, the words pride kept locked inside, the regret they have carried in silence, the feelings they tried to convince themselves were gone. You may have believed they were unbothered. You may have believed they walked away and never looked back. But the truth may be almost the opposite. They felt more than they showed. They simply did not know how to say it. Or maybe they were too afraid to try. What is coming is not just a moment. It is a turning point. And turning points rarely arrive with loud music and clear signs. They build slowly through distance, quiet, reflection, and the hard process of finally becoming aware. By the time they appear, they carry real weight, not only because of what is about to be said, but because of everything that stayed unsaid for so long. People often think apologies come from sudden emotion, but the kind of honesty that costs a person their pride usually grows in private. It forms in quiet rooms where there is no one to impress, no one to blame, and no story left to hide behind. There is only a person sitting with their own thoughts, slowly seeing what they lost and how they helped lose it. That is not an easy place to sit, because saying I was wrong is not only admitting a mistake, it is tearing apart a version of the self. It is letting go of the identity that kept defending old actions, excusing old choices, and pretending things simply were not meant to work. It is seeing clearly that something meaningful came into their life and they did not meet it with the care it deserved. That kind of realization does not feel noble. It feels heavy. But they stayed with it. They did not fully run from it. They did not bury it forever under distractions, new people, or easy explanations. Or maybe they tried at first. Maybe they told themselves they would move on. Maybe they thought someone else would eventually replace what they felt with you. Maybe they believed what you had was beautiful, but not rare. Maybe they tried to find something familiar in someone new. Maybe they kept searching for the same feeling in different faces, different conversations, different moments. And that is where the truth began to rise, because comparison reveals what the heart has been hiding. When every new experience is quietly measured against one that came before, it often means the earlier one set a standard. Not in a shallow way, in a deep one. Something about your presence, your care, your kindness, the way you showed up, became a point of reference they could not escape. And when nothing else reached that same place in them, the mind had to reconsider what it once pushed aside. Time apart can do that. When it is used honestly, it removes noise. It clears away emotion that once made everything blurry. It gives patterns room to show themselves. It lets behavior become visible. It allows meaning to settle slowly instead of loudly. Time apart does not always bring people back together, but it often brings clarity. And clarity is what brought them here. Not certainty, not control, not even expectation, just clarity. They do not know how you will respond. They do not know if what they feel now is enough to rebuild what broke. They do not know if this is too late, but they know if they never say it, it will stay with them. There is a kind of regret that does not fade with years. It does not become easier to carry just because time passes. It stays in the background like a quiet ache because it was never faced, never resolved, never spoken aloud. That is the burden they no longer want to hold. And the choice to face you, to speak honestly, and to risk being rejected instead of hiding behind silence means something. Not because it guarantees an ending you want, but because it proves something in them has changed. The version of them that avoided hard truths, the version that could not meet you where you were, the version that hid behind confusion and distance, could not have done this. That version could never have stood in front of you and said, without excuse, I did not know how to love you in the way you deserved. And if those words come, really come, you will feel that something has shifted. But now your part becomes just as important as theirs, because it would be easy and very human to take their return as proof that your feelings were mutual all along, that the bond meant just as much to them, and that this is the start of something being restored. Maybe it is. Maybe it is not. That is why awareness matters more than hope here. Hope, when it is not grounded, can pull you back into old patterns. It can make you ignore what does not fit. It can make you soften what should be questioned. It can rush you toward an answer before truth has fully shown itself. Awareness does the opposite. It keeps you present. It helps you listen not only to the words but to the tone, not only to the message but to the energy, not only to the feeling but to the responsibility behind it. Because words, even meaningful ones, are only the beginning. Anyone can say they are sorry. Anyone can explain what they understand now. Anyone can speak beautifully in a moment full of emotion. But what matters is what comes after. Do they move differently after the conversation? Do their actions begin to match the understanding they claim to have? Do they show, through steadiness and effort, that they can now meet you in a way they could not before? That is where the real answer lives, and you are in a position to see it more clearly now, because you are not the same person you were when things fell apart. You have changed too. You had your own season of questions, pain, confusion, and silence. You had to make sense of the ending without their explanation. You had to gather parts of yourself that were shaken by the way it ended. You had to rebuild. That changes a person. It sharpens what they can see. It deepens what they know they need. It teaches them what they value and what they will not accept again. So when this meeting happens, you are not walking in from a place of pure longing. You are walking in from a place of knowing what it felt like to love them, knowing what it felt like to lose them, knowing what it took to survive that loss and return to yourself. And that does not disappear just because they have come back. This moment is not only about what they feel, it is also about what you now see. You are there to notice whether what they offer today actually fits the person you have become. That is a different kind of strength, not power over them, power within yourself. The kind that lets you stay calm while emotion stands right in front of you. And there may be a moment, a very quiet one, when they are standing there, and something inside you recognizes the truth before your mind has time to argue with it. It may last only a second. It may be subtle, but you will feel it. Before you start analyzing. Before old hope rises. Before fear tries to speak. There will be a clear inner signal. Not the story you told yourself for months. Not the fantasy. Not the dread. Just the simple reality of what is in front of you. That is the moment to trust, not assumptions, not pressure, not expectation. Trust that quiet awareness shaped by everything you have already lived through, because it will tell you whether what stands before you is aligned or not. And whatever it says, you are capable of answering it. That part is often forgotten. People focus so much on the outcome. Will they get back together? Will it work this time? Can what was broken be repaired? But the deepest part of the moment is not the outcome. It is how you show up inside it. You do not need to know everything right away. You do not need to decide your future in one conversation. You only need to be present enough to receive what is being offered and honest enough to answer from where you truly are. That may mean asking hard questions. It may mean saying what the silence did to you. It may mean setting boundaries. It may mean saying you need time. It may even mean seeing that even if feelings still exist, something in you has changed too much to go back in the same way. Every one of those responses is valid, because this is not about returning to the past. It is about deciding what, if anything, can exist now. Keep listening, because this is where the heart of it begins to show. What matters most is that whatever happens next is real. That is what this entire moment is built around. Truth. Not the old version of the relationship, not the dream version of what it could become. Truth about what it was, what it is now, and what it can honestly become from here. And truth, when it is fully spoken, has a way of bringing peace, even when the ending is not the one people expect. If something real can be rebuilt, that will become clear, not just through words, but through what is maintained over time. It will show itself through effort, through consistency, through a willingness to do things differently. And if it cannot be rebuilt, that will become clear too. But either way, something gets resolved. Something that once stayed open, unfinished, and quietly haunting the edges of your life finally comes into the light. And clarity like that is not a small thing. Unfinished bonds have a way of staying with people, not always in loud ways, often in quiet ways. They shape how we trust. They affect how open we are willing to be. They influence how we enter new connections without even noticing. When something like this is finally faced, that hidden hold begins to loosen. You get the chance to understand not only what happened, but what it meant. You get to see that what you felt was real, that it mattered, that it had depth. And that matters whether the relationship continues or not. Because one of the silent fears people carry after love ends is this painful question: was it ever truly mutual? Did I imagine the depth? Did I care more? Did it mean something different to them than it meant to me? This moment answers that in a living way. They are here. They are choosing honesty. They are choosing discomfort over silence. That does not happen without feeling. And while that does not automatically mean the relationship should continue, it does mean something important. You did not imagine it. You did not get it wrong by loving as deeply as you did. And that is worth holding on to because it says something about who you are, not only in this connection but in every connection you will have from this point on. What you carry is something many people spend years trying to hide, question, or shrink. The ability to care deeply, to show up fully, to offer not just attention, but real presence. But after disappointment, that gift can begin to feel like a flaw. It can start to look like weakness instead of strength. Yet it was never the problem. The pain was not created by your ability to love. The pain came from where that love was placed, how it was received, and whether it was met by someone with equal awareness, readiness, and emotional honesty. When something meaningful breaks, especially after you gave it your full sincerity, the mind starts searching for reasons. One of the easiest conclusions it finds is this: maybe I cared too much. Maybe I gave too much. Maybe I should have held back. That thought feels protective. It creates the illusion that if next time you are less open, less expressive, less invested, you will be safer. But what it really does is pull you away from one of your greatest strengths. Deep care is not something that needs to be made smaller so you can avoid pain. It needs to be placed wisely. It becomes powerful when it is given to a space where it can grow instead of being taken for granted. You do not fix something beautiful by shrinking it. You refine it by understanding it, and that understanding changes everything. To understand it means seeing that depth of feeling is not what creates suffering. Misalignment is. The pain comes when two people are not standing in the same emotional place. When one sees clearly and the other does not. When one is ready and the other is still confused. When one is building something real while the other is still trying to figure out what they even feel. That difference creates pressure. It creates mixed signals. It creates confusion. It creates those painful moments where one heart is moving forward and the other is staying blurred and uncertain. That is not a failure of love. It is a difference in timing, in readiness, and in emotional clarity. And that difference is what makes experiences like this so difficult and so life-changing. It hurts because something real was there, but it was not fully supported by both people in the way it needed to be. So when you look back at how much you gave, how open you were, and how honestly you cared, do not turn that into evidence that you should have loved differently. See it for what it truly was. It was an honest expression of who you are. That part of you did not ruin anything. It revealed something important. It showed the depth you are capable of holding. It showed the kind of bond you naturally create when you stop hiding. It showed what it feels like to experience something that is not shallow, something with emotional weight and real meaning. That matters. Not because it promises every deep connection will last, but because it gives you a standard. It gives you a living reference for what meaningful connection actually feels like. Not the imagined version, the real one. And once you know that feeling, you carry that knowledge forward with more wisdom. The change now is not that you become colder, it is that you become clearer, not hesitant, not guarded in a fearful way, clear. Discernment is what grows in you now, and discernment is powerful. It lets you stay open, expressive, and deeply caring, but only in places where your energy is truly seen and returned. It helps you notice early when effort is uneven, when clarity is missing, when something feels off beneath the words. It helps you step back not because you are afraid, but because you are aware. And awareness is what shifts your whole experience from here on. Because now, as this meeting draws near, this conversation, this possible turning point, you are not entering it as someone who needs it to work in order to feel whole. You are entering it as someone who has already done the inner work, someone who has faced themselves, someone who understands their own heart more deeply than before. That changes the entire energy. It moves you from waiting into observing, not coldly, not with distance, but with steadiness. You are no longer trying to prove your worth, no longer trying to hold everything together, no longer trying to decode confusion or fill emotional gaps with hope. You are simply present, seeing what is real, answering what is true, and letting the moment reveal itself without forcing it into a shape you want. That is where clarity comes from. Not from overthinking every detail or predicting every outcome. Clarity comes from being fully present with what is right in front of you and letting it show you what it is. When someone speaks from real honesty, you can feel the difference. There is a steadiness in it, even when they are nervous. There is less defense, less performance, more truth. And when truth is real, it lands. But just as clearly, when something is incomplete, when the words are there but the depth behind them is still not fully formed, you can feel that too. And this time, you are not going to ignore that feeling. That may be one of the biggest changes that has happened inside you. Before, you may have given endless chances. You may have filled in missing pieces with hope. You may have treated uncertainty as if it were hidden love waiting to become clear. Now you do not need to do that, because you understand that what is real does not need that much translation. It shows itself more directly. And that understanding gives you a kind of inner balance that changes this entire encounter. You are no longer walking in with the question, will this finally work? You are walking in with a quieter, stronger question, is this aligned? That question has power because it is not obsessed with outcome, it is rooted in truth, and truth simplifies things. It cuts through old stories, imagined futures, emotional projection, and the noise of overthinking. It brings everything back to what is actually being offered, what is actually felt, and what is truly possible from here. Sometimes what is offered is enough. Sometimes people do grow. Sometimes they return not only with words, but with a changed way of showing up. More steady, more open, more willing to face reality instead of avoiding it. When that happens, something new can be built. Not the old thing restored exactly as it was, but a new version shaped by what both people learned while apart. And yes, that can be real. That can happen. So do not close your heart too quickly, but do not abandon your clarity either. Both matter. Both belong here. And sometimes what is offered is not enough. Sometimes the realization comes late. Sometimes the feeling is real, but the ability to sustain a healthy bond still is not there. Sometimes the words are sincere, but the actions do not change enough to hold what they are asking for. And that is not something you are meant to repair for them. It is something you are meant to recognize. Seeing that does not erase what was real between you. It does not mean the connection was false. It simply means that at this moment, it does not align in the way it would need to in order to move forward with peace, safety, and truth. And having the strength to see that and accept it without trying to bend it into another shape is a powerful act. It means choosing truth over attachment. It means honoring yourself without denying what you felt. It means understanding that closure is not always about reunion. Sometimes closure is the clear moment when the unknown becomes known. When confusion loses its grip. When the question finally gets answered, even if the answer is not the one you once dreamed of. So if this person comes back, if they stand before you with honesty in their voice and truth in their eyes, receive the moment for what it is. Do not rush. Do not shrink. Do not hand your power to hope or fear. Stay present. Listen carefully. Feel clearly. Let the truth show itself in full, and then respond from the deepest, calmest place within you. Because whatever happens next, this much is already true. You are no longer the same person who once stood in the middle of that silence, wondering what it all meant. Now you know your worth. Now you know your depth. Now you know the difference between longing and alignment, and that knowing will guide you better than any promise ever could.